Warning, the following audio transmission will forever change your outlook on society. You will no longer believe the narrative. You are about to wake up and see things for what they really are. News, facts, and opinions. This is the Doom Daily Show.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Doom Daily Show. I am your host, Jester Dooms. The email, doomdailyshow@gmail.com. The website, www.jestersvoice.com. Everywhere on social media at Jester Dooms. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is April 1st, 2026. Beware of the pranksters and the jokesters, as it is April Fool's Day. I believe it's also National Autism Awareness Day, I believe. Producer Scooter, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it is. Anyway, so just beware for that asshole that might try to play the pranks on you at work, or, you know, any cruel things that people may do. Just, you know, keep your head on a swivel today. On yesterday's show, I told you about probably the best April Fool's Day prank ever I pulled on my wife when I had called code enforcement and I told her code enforcement showed up, and she called chewing out the code enforcement officer, and he was never there, never had a record, never nothing. So it was my best work yet. I have to top it. Don't know what I'm going to do today, but we will see. And I will report back to you guys tomorrow. But 'tis that day, so have fun. Have fun with it, you know. Side note, yesterday, my wife was able to convince Walmart to give my son back his money. He actually walked in the store and they handed him his cash back for his video game debacle. And I guess me going in there and raising hell like I did was very memorable. Plenty of people were made aware of the situation because I was infuriatedly pissed. Yeah. So, victory for my son, and good on my wife for pushing the envelope. And yeah, we fight for our kids, man. We don't quit. You screwed over a little kid out of his money, man. That's not gonna fly. Anyway, there is a new shirt out on jestersvoice.com. We are dropping a shirt for Easter for the month of April. You go check out the website, find it on the website under Apocalyptic Apparel. That's right. You go to www.jestersvoice.com. Go on there, order yourself the limited edition Easter t-shirt. It's pretty sick. You know, so guys, just so you know, like I am the brainchild of all these designs for these t-shirts, right? So if you see a design on there, that came from my noggin and made it to a shirt. So it's pretty cool. Anyway, moving forward. The contractors that are doing the graded and retaining walls came out yesterday. Gentlemen showed up with a almost 19,000 pound bulldozer. And he spent the day out here going ham. And he, wow, I really wish that I would have, like, with this homestead journey, you learn things along the way. Okay. Like, that's just the way it fucking goes. If I would have known, if I would start this journey over again, my God, the mistakes I would be able to prevent from making, and just what a smoother operation and a smoother process everything would have been, right? Like, that's just would have been awesome had I have known certain things. But anyway, so the guy showed up yesterday to finally get started on this project, which we've been waiting forever for. And he went out there and just started molding and crafting the hillside with this bulldozer. And after looking at everything that he's done, I'm just like, Jesus, do you know how much easier our lives would have been if we would have just done this if we would have done this one fucking aspect first? How much easier everything would have been. Like, had I known this man existed with this equipment with such a reasonable price, I could have got him out here right from the rip before we did anything, gave the guy a wheelbarrow load of money and said, here, do all these things before I start any fucking thing here. The time, the headaches, the wasted cash, like everything, man, just. So now that this gentleman's out here and he's doing things, we're kind of like, you know, well, since you're fucking here, do you have time to do more since you're here? because that's probably a damn fine idea since we got you here and towing equipment's expensive and whatnot. Since we got you here, why don't we do some more? So I think what I'm going to do is kind of poke and prod at this guy a little bit and see what he'll be willing to do. I don't want him to put off bigger, better, higher paying jobs to sit here and do my stuff, right? But at the same time, you're here. If you can work within a budget or at least give me a reasonable price on these things, man, let's rock and roll and do a bunch of shit while you're here. But yeah, wildly impressed with the work the man did after just being here for one day. And they always go back and you always hear people say, good things come to those who wait, blah, blah, blah. And that could be true in this capacity. So anyway, just really, really freaking happy that this is working out in our favor. That's all. Anyway, we'll be right back after these messages.
Hey, Producer Scooter here. First off, thank you for downloading and participating in the wide world of Jester Doom. Please be sure to check out JestersVoice.com website. Everything you want to know is located on JestersVoice.com. If you're looking for salacious details, it's on JestersVoice.com. Don't forget to share the show with your friends and even with all your enemies. And now, back to the musings of Jester Doom.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Doom Daily Show. I'm your host, Jester Dooms. The email, doomdailyshow@gmail.com. The website, www.jestersvoice.com. Go there, get your apocalyptic apparel t-shirt. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to talk about a very shitty situation on today's show. And I there's just no way to get into this. So on the Epic Times, America's $500 billion sewage problem by Autumn Spreedman, if I'm saying Autumn's name correctly. Beneath city streets and suburb neighborhoods, a vast network of pipes and wastewater treatment systems is reaching the end of its life. This subterranean infrastructure is already suffering tens of thousands of failures per year while exposing millions of Americans to contamination risks. Now, okay, so as we're reading through this article, I want everybody to hang on to this little nugget I'm going to give you. My father had a plumbing business for 40 fucking years. When I was little, we did not have a babysitter consistently. So I would go to work with my father on the regular quite often, especially during summer break, okay? And I started learning the trade at a very, very, very young age, okay? I could install a water heater by myself when I was 9 years old. I picked up on this shit very quickly, okay? And it was pretty much like, I have to go to work with my dad because there's no one to watch my little ass. So what am I to do other than be right by his side, handing him tools and, grabbing him the right torch tip and learning how to wire this in or learning how to solder that or setting up the sewer machine to unclog a septic line. That's what it was. And then it became a job. So mind you, as we talk about this, I'm probably going to pick some things apart and I'm probably going to give you some things that they're not telling you in this article. Okay, utilities, plumbing experts, and environmentalists warn that the scope of the problem has expanded rapidly in recent years. As of 2024, the Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, estimated that $630 billion in wastewater infrastructure investment would be needed to repair and replace deteriorating systems. At the same time, extreme weather events and growing population were putting additional strain on aging U.S. pipes. Okay, now I'm trying to think which part I want to dive in first. Let's talk about the weather. Let's start there. Okay, extreme weather events. So what extreme weather events do is there's a couple ways to look at this. The first thing is extreme weather events create erosion. Okay, erosion changes depths of pipes, sometimes putting them above the frost line, therefore freezing, damage, cracking pipes. The other thing that extreme weather does is it creates soft soil. It creates little landslides. It creates soil shifts, which also break and crack pipes. Okay. then extreme weather events can also saturate septic drain fields and erode sand mounds. So as we're talking in a whole, just remember this extends beyond public utility into the private homeowner's self-contained septic system. Okay, just food for thought on that. The other thing that we should probably hit on is growing population. Okay, putting additional strain on aging U.S. pipes, as they're saying, which that's kind of a gray area. And the reason why I'm saying that is because if you have there's so many different ways to slice this nugget open. On one hand, we're seeing more people living in single family homes, like the children aren't moving out and they're raising their kids there with the parents. And what was once a family of 4 living in a home is now a family of 7 or 8 or 9 living in a home. All right. And when you're stacking people like that in certain neighborhoods, those systems were not designed to handle the extra waste. Because it's not just people taking a dump and flushing the toilet. It's also extra dishes, extra laundry. Like there's more happening, extra showers. Like the water usage goes up, as does the sewage usage, and the drain lines do pay the price for this. Now, when you talk about like what deteriorates these lines, you got to think that there's different types of sewer lines out there. The biggest thing we're seeing now is your PVC pipe, and a lot of this is cell core PVC pipe. So it's not as dense and as hard as it once was. It's basically, the best way to describe it, it's like it's 2 pipes with a foam sleeve on the inside. It's cell core. It's like a foam core. It's not a solid PVC anymore. Also, what you're seeing in very older neighborhoods, probably like Northeast, I don't know if it was used out West or not. Maybe, I would say probably, but there's still some terracotta floating around out there. Now, terracotta is very brittle, right? And terracotta cannot take a lot of ground stress. It's very easy to crack. It's very easy to crush. It's hard as shit to cut, but it's very easy to break. All right. So there is terracotta floating around out there still in some capacities, which is affected differently by usage, is affected differently by the chemicals that we're putting down our drains. I mean, you guys got to think, these lines see everything. They're seeing dish detergents, laundry detergents, toilet cleaning chemicals, bleaches. I mean, things that are chlorinated. These drains get it all. All right. In some areas, they're running cast iron. Now, cast iron drain lines is typically something you see inside a residential home, not typically ran outside underground, but people have done it. It is a thing. All right. And then something I haven't seen in a very long time, I'm sure it still exists out there somewhere, but there are, in fact, lead drain lines in different places. And lead just doesn't, it holds up, yeah, for a time, but it's, nowhere near like the lifespan of like PVC or something. So just remember that there's different types of drains in the U.S. that are aging, and each one ages differently, and each one is more susceptible to certain conditions. Okay. All right. Moving on. The American Society of Civil Engineers, ASCE, in its 2025 report card gave U.S. wastewater infrastructure a D+, which the group largely attributed to lack of funding to meet the needs of communities with failing systems. Average utility prices for wastewater consumers increased to nearly $65 per month from $35 per month between 2010 and 2020. ASCE researchers found even still, they said, rising utility prices aren't keeping pace with the growing cost for utilities to provide routine operation and maintenance. Okay, so let's go to break. We'll be right back.
Jester from It's Doomsday Podcast and the Doom Daily Show here. Do you ever find yourself overloaded with way too much information? Too many logins, too many passwords, too many websites for stuff you like? Yeah, I'm the same way. You don't have to worry about that with the Doom Daily Show and It's Doomsday Podcast. Let's make it simple. Just visit linktree.com/JesterDooms. Add it to your bookmarks. That way, when you need to find the right information, it's right there, under a tap of your finger or a click of your mouse. go to linktree.com/JesterDooms. Get it, got it, done. Remember, no one has all the answers, but this will provide you with a place to start. Linktree.com/JesterDooms. And now, on with the conversation. And here's Jester.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Doom Daily Show. I'm your host, Jester Dooms. The email, doomdailyshow@gmail.com. The website, jestersvoice.com. Everywhere on social media, @JesterDooms. Okay. Now, when we talk about the idea of utility prices rising and the idea that these systems are failing, something that I want everybody to remember and think about is these utility companies in cities, in counties, in municipalities are drastically pushing homeowners to get off of septic systems and tie into utilities. Mainly because it's once you're locked in, you're locked in. You have a monthly fee you have to pay forever, and they know that, right? I have no monthly bill with my septic system. It's here, it works, there's no fucking monthly cost. Was it a big initial upfront cost? Yeah, but I had to do it because there's no septic utilities in my area. I had to do a septic system, right? But, I say this with a big but, when you're adding more people in, so like, and this is like, it's like giving kids, it's like giving a kid a coloring book with too many fucking crayons is what this is, okay? So you design a sewage plant for a city based on how many residents, based on how many homes with an expected growth rate, and you design and you build that system. And then these people get greedy and decide, well, we want everybody in this town that has septics to be on our system too, so we can build them every month. Oh shit, we can't handle it. That is what they're also seeing, but they don't want to put that in this article. I guarantee we will not see something along the lines of an increased number of customers, are having to follow a new rule of no longer being allowed to have their own septic system. So therefore it's killing the utilities. They're not gonna flat out say that. Paradoxically, as household water and sewer bills increased by more than 24% between 2020 and 2025, wastewater infrastructure renewal and replacement rates for large-scale projects actually decreased over the past decade to 2% from 3%, according to ACE analysts. The scope of the problem becomes clear when considering the sheer volume of sanitary sewer overflows. As of April 2025, the EPA estimated that there were between 23,000 and 75,000 overflow incidents per year, and that didn't include sewage and backup into buildings or residential homes. Some of the reasons for these spills included blockages, line breakage, design defects, and overloaded treatment systems. So your overloaded treatment system is what I'm talking about. When a home is designed for a certain amount of occupants and a town is designed with a certain number of residences and they build it for that, then a town expands or they get more people sucked into public utilities. All right. A spokesperson for the EPA told the Epoch Times that the agency is committed to accelerating investment in water infrastructure by stewarding federal funding appropriated by Congress. Recent funding highlights from 2025 included Clean Water State Revolving Fund and Water Infrastructure Finance and Innovation Act, which committed $13 billion for infrastructure improvements in communities across the nation, according to the EPA spokesperson. When asked about the staggering volume of sewer overflow per year, the agency representative emphasized that the value and importance of this network. Now, I got to tell you something, man, and this is like what I want to communicate with everybody. So we have to follow very strict guidelines when it comes to plumbing, okay? Like you have to have somebody with a license actually do these lines. Somebody that's approved for the state, took an exam, and they are qualified to install these lines, okay? You cannot install a septic system without a permit. You cannot, put your plumbing in without a permit. Everything's got to be licensed, and there is red tape involved here, okay? Now, this is all to connect to systems that are fucking failing. So why the fuck do I need to get a permit when the entire country's sewage infrastructure is failing? Why in the fuck do I need a licensed plumber to come out and tie me into public utilities if 3 miles down the road, the treatment facility can't handle what they're getting anyway? This is when we go back and we utter this little saying, government is another way to say better than you, because that's what it is. Rules for thee, not for me. And that's what it's portrayed as. So if you had your shit get fucked up, or your shit was under whatever, like if it was not engineered correctly and got fucked up, you'd be the one paying the penalty. But these assholes will make you get a permit. They'll charge you monthly. They could fuck up, and it's, oh, well, we'll fix it, I guess. Do we have to pay fines? No, we're the city. Do we have to pay fines? No, we're a municipality. Do we have to pay fines? No, we're the county. Now, I'm sure that there are circumstances where the EPA does get involved and holds people accountable and does pass out fines. I'm sure that that does happen, but I guarantee you it's fucking rare. It has to be something that's making some serious media headlines for them to do something. EPA estimates that our national sewers are worth a total of more than $1 trillion. The representative said the collection system of a single large municipality is an asset worth billions of dollars, and that of a smaller city would cost many millions to replace. Ongoing maintenance and rehabilitation could add value to the original investment by maintaining the system's capacity and extending its life. The cost of rehabilitation and other measures to correct sanitary sewer overflow can vary widely by community, size, and sewer system types. Here's a great solution for this. Okay, I'm going to give it to you guys straight. Allow homeowners that have a certain size property to get a septic system and not be tied into public utility. Say if a homeowner has 1 acre or more, allow them to do their own system and not have to be tied in. And in fact, give them a grant to help pay for this so they take the stress off the public utility system. Another thing, if you're building, and this should just be the way it is, if you're building some sort of hospital, hotel, school, factory, anything that's going to have high occupancy structures that are sitting on a large enough piece of land, say 5 acres or more, have them install their own self-contained systems to, again, not put the stress on the public systems. Now, this was a thing where I grew up at. It was a very common thing for each individual school to have their own treatment system and not be tied in. It's a very common thing in rural communities, in fact, that schools will have their own treatment facilities and not be tied in with public utilities. They have their own little treatment systems with pumps and a maintenance guy, and he goes in and he adds the chemicals and they treat the water and they have their drain fields and they got their own shit going on. All right. And they're not tied in. Now, when you get into things where it's within inner cities and highly densely populated areas, and there's not the footprint of soil there to do these treatment facilities, they're obviously getting tied back into public utility. Now, also, you have to think to yourself, too, like big cities like New York that have large sewer infrastructure. Could you imagine what it would cost to redo those systems? Shutting down 10 city blocks and digging up the ground? Like, could you imagine? Anyway, the U.S. water pipe network is part of the national infrastructure that has been neglected for years and suffers from chronic underinvestment, according to the Association of State Floodplain Managers. The country has roughly 800,000 miles of sewer pipes, according to ASCE's 2021 report card. For perspective, the national highway system only covers an estimated of 164,000 miles, according to the Department of Transportation. Within the sprawling web, the average age of sewer pipes is about 45 years old. ASCE's 2021 report found, but in some U.S. cities, sewer systems date back a century or more. In St. Louis, for example, some sewer lines were built around the time of the Civil War, and parts of Philadelphia working sewer systems date back to 1800. Municipal sewer and water reported in 2025. Now, when you think about a system being this old, you have to think how that system was built, right? What is sitting under the ground there? Do they have actual brick and mortar sewer lines that are, 48 inches, 72 inches in diameter, where you could stand up and walk through this thing and everybody has just tied into it? So you just have this pool you have this underwater river, basically, this little canal that's just moving everything downstream. Because that's like a lot of what you see. Like think back to the sewer systems that the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles were running in the TV shows and the movies and stuff. I mean, that is, somebody just didn't make that up. That shit actually exists. Right. I mean, it's not as elaborate as they portray these things in the movies, but no. They exist. Those were built. Okay. Wastewater treatment systems are meant to act as a barrier to disease, both for public health and environment. Laura Underwood, director of digital water solutions for Locust Technologies, told the Epic Times, if you have overflows or failures, these events can release pathogens into waterways and increase the risk of gastrointestinal illness, skin infections, and contamination of recreational or drinking waters. Now, let's talk about this for a second. So there's one thing that nobody really brings up when we talk about wastewater. All right. So America is highly fucking medicated. All right. We're pumping ourselves full of vitamins. We're pumping ourselves full of narcotics, pain meds, psychotropic medication, like just, the Zoloft and the fucking Xanax, like all these pills everybody's taking all the time. Well, you expel these chemicals in your waste and they enter these systems. All right. So now you're also talking about not just the idea of like hepatitis or AIDS or HIV or these different bacterias or different viruses being in the system. You're also talking about very dangerous chemical cocktails that, like in a lot of these chemicals, they don't dissipate, they don't break down, and they find themselves ending up in the environment and affecting wildlife and stuff. Okay, so something else to think about too. And when we talk about the contamination of the waterways with these spills and whatnot, you have to remember a lot of this wastewater ends up back in public waterways anyway. It's just highly fucking treated and sanitized before it does. Okay, like that's the thing. The water goes in, it gets treated. There's an engineer in there that's making sure that shit's okay, and that water gets released back into the environment in some sort of a tributary, a creek, a spring, like a river, a lake. It's going somewhere. There's a lot of people that have a very fictitious idea that this water just goes away and it never makes it out again. Like, no, it evaporates, becomes rain, and it's coming down on your car one day. Anyway, we don't teach a lot of conservation anymore as far as like water and flushing the toilet and stuff like that. But do be mindful of these things, guys. Just do be mindful of it. Anyway, I wish I could say that this was like an April Fool's Day episode, that this wasn't really a serious situation, but it's serious. And you can go read about it on the Epic Times. Now, when you go to work today, make sure to tell all your coworkers about this shitty scenario. Anyway, that's it. I'm getting out of here. We'll see you guys back here tomorrow for another excited episode of the Doom Daily Show. Producer Scooter, if you would, sir, hit that button.
News, facts, and opinions. This is the Doom Daily Show.